That's what we do. We rise up. That's what this teaching's all about. Rising up. So today I'm going to talk to you about the emperor's new clothes. Now, probably you all know the fable, but I'm going to walk us through it anyway. There's this emperor who really digs his clothes. And these folks come along and say, we can make you the best clothes ever. And as an added benefit, those who are unworthy can't see it, and people who are simply stupid won't be able to see the clothes. And the emperor's like, that's great. So he goes and he starts, and he hires them, and they go and they start making the clothes. And so the first thing the emperor does is send down his top council to go check on these guys. And so the council goes down there, and he walks in, and these guys hold up nothing and go, what do you think of the garment? And the council doesn't see anything, but doesn't want to appear unworthy or stupid. So he's going, it looks great. That just looks great. Right? And so he goes and reports, they're doing a great job down there. And so maybe in your life, you have had an opportunity to feel like something's going along and everybody seems to be going along that way and there seems to be a lot of agreement that way, but something doesn't feel right. But maybe you didn't have the courage to speak up at that time. Am I the only one who hasn't had the courage to speak up at some point? And so the day comes and the emperor is ready, and so he goes down and realizes he doesn't see anything either. But he doesn't want to appear unworthy or stupid. So he goes along with it, and he gets undressed, and he puts on these garments they're saying are there, and he winds up parading down the street naked, and all the subjects of the land are like, wow, they're all saying he's naked, but nobody wants to appear unworthy or stupid. So they're all going along with this. They're all going along with this until some kid finally steps up and goes, he's naked. And then everybody kind of looks at each other and goes, he is naked. And the emperor goes, my God, I am naked. But decides he wants to stay cool about it. So the fable ends with him continuing his parade anyway until the end where he runs quickly in and puts on some clothes. So I am here today to bring you the emperor's new clothes about science of mind. And this is going to be hard for some folks. But this is what came to me, and this is what I bring you today. In the We Believe, and throughout the textbook, and through in very many places, it says this. It says, we believe in the control of circumstances through the power of the mind. And I am here to tell you today that that is the emperor's new clothes. And you're like, what? So I ask, who here has mastered controlling every single moment of their lives, every single circumstance, every single day, always? Raise your hand if you have mastered to that level. No one? What's wrong with you people? How come you haven't mastered it? You obviously haven't practiced hard enough. Yeah, you're not good enough. You're not trying hard enough. Isn't that what happens, right? Don't we start thinking that way because of that simple line of we believe we can control our circumstances? We get it. Am I the only one who has at some point said to himself, what's wrong with me that after 20 years of doing this, I still can't control every circumstance? Am I the only one? So this is what we deal with here. It can be incredibly hard on our self-esteem. And what isn't that the most horrible thing is when there are people who don't come here when they're having issues because they don't want to be asked, how did you create that? They don't want to be confronted by all the happy smiles. This is the emperor's new clothes in our movement. Now, am I saying that that means science of mind doesn't work? No, it works fantastically. But if you're trying to control your circumstances, you are lost in the world of that there's something that needs controlling. Let's have that quote I got. Now, I put this quote up 2 weeks ago, the last time I spoke, and this is from Ernest Holmes. When ideas of evil, lack, or fear present themselves, exercise your dominion over them, not the circumstance, over your ideas of evil, lack, or fear. There is no spiritual law of discord, sickness, or lack. The laws of spirit are complete, perfect, and good. When we know this, really know it, what's there to control? We don't really have anything that needs controlling if we get this. And one of the things that happens, we're just going to leave that up there now. One of the things that happens is, and the reason why sometimes we go into treatment and boom, something happens and it feels like, wow, we really can control our circumstances. And other times, nothing happens for a really long time, is because of the fear that we are thinking of the circumstance that we want to somehow change. If we weren't so afraid of the circumstance, if we understood the good that must be in there in it, if we understood that there must be some blessing here, what would there be to control? We don't know what's best. We, in our small minds, don't always know what's best, and yet we want to go into treatment for something we think is what it is we want. I'll give you an example. John, years and years ago, told me a great story. He said that one day, him and Barbara were leaving 10 minutes late to go see Rocking Bear, who they were apprenticing with at the time. And they were in a real huff about it because being late was a bad idea. They wanted to always be on time. They wanted to control that circumstance. And in fact, John at another time had bent time and thought maybe he could do it this time so that they could show up on time. And so they were feeling very distraught about being late, this 10 minutes late. And so they're rushing up there until they reach a pileup that had happened on the highway they were traveling 10 minutes before they arrived. If they could control circumstances, they might have wound up in it. How many times in your life has something not worked out the way you would have made it work out if you could control your circumstances, only to have something better come along that you didn't even imagine? And that's the thing about control. When we try to control our circumstances, thinking that, I'll treat and this is going to happen. We get this mental equivalent, and this is what it is, and this is how we want it to show up. And we don't know if that's what's truly best. We don't know. And when we get into that headset that we do and we try to get into control, that's when we get into trouble. And that's why I believe that the we believe of controlling circumstances that is all over our movement is not for the highest and best of who we are. And that's what I'm here to speak on today, to be clear with you today, that it isn't about controlling, it's about knowing highest and best. And it's about opening to possibilities that you never could have even imagined. That's the true power going on here, is that when we let go of what we think is best for us and rise up to connecting to our higher selves in a way that allows us to know that there's something good here. There's something powerful going on here. There's something greater going on here than I can imagine, than we can imagine. That's when miracles really show up, and they show up in big ways. So, when I was out in California, senior minister of Spirit Works. And it became evident that during COVID, it was going to close. That it was evident that it was time for Ash and I to move on. And I came up with the idea that since we got to move on, let's be adventurous. Let's do something we've never done before. And I started looking, instead of just in the country, in the world, for the least expensive, best places to live in the world. And I checked 8 different lists, and on all 8, one of them Forbes, I mean, these were big-time lists. The number one place in the world to live was Portugal. And so I went to Ash and I said, let's move to Portugal. Rationally, it sounded like a good idea. It would fit our finances. It would be adventurous. It would be really fun. Let's move to Portugal. And so we got behind that, and I started working on all the paperwork, right? And that's how it starts, right? You get an idea. You think this is it. Now, maybe you check in with your higher self, or maybe you just get excited about the idea that just popped in your head. Now, I didn't. One of the few times in the past 20 years, I can honestly say, I did not check in with my higher self. I went with it. And so there I am, putting in all the paperwork, a lot of paperwork. And it cost over $1,000 and just weeks and weeks. Actually, it took almost 2 months to simply put the packet together to send into the embassy to apply for residency in Portugal. Put it all together, send it in. 6 weeks later, we get a rejection letter. The rejection letter says, we're sorry, but we've changed the requirements. Here's the new list of requirements you now have to do to get to Portugal. And so isn't that what happens, right? You move forward on a project you're very excited about, things move along, and then all of a sudden you run into an obstacle. You run into something. And this is where you can run into trouble with the idea that you can control conditions. You could start treating for this to happen. You start treating that, we're going to Portugal. I know we're going to Portugal. Instead of what's really highest and best here. Instead of treating for, Ash and I years ago decided we were going to start just not treat for anything specific, treat for highest and best. Because we don't know. And so we kept treating for highest and best. I went ahead and did everything they asked for the second round and sent it in a second time. 6 weeks later, we get another rejection letter saying, I'm sorry, but we've changed the requirements again. Here are the new requirements, and we've held your application so long that you now only have 2 weeks to fill these requirements, or you have to start the process all over. And so I looked at that, and I checked in, treated for highest and best, and the word that kept popping up, that had been popping up all along and I'd been ignoring it, was Asheville. It was Asheville. And the reason I'd been ignoring it is I did not leave here on great terms with John and Barbara. We kind of parted ways, not in a good way. And so the idea of coming back here didn't feel all that good. And so, but here it was. This incredibly uncomfortable feeling. And isn't that what happens sometimes? The thing that's right in front of you that your higher self, your divine self wants you to do, feels uncomfortable, really, really uncomfortable. But I thought, okay, if I'm going to believe in this stuff, if I'm going to believe that this stuff really works, I need to follow what feels that uncomfortable. And so I texted John and Barbara saying, we're coming back to Asheville. Found an apartment in 2 days. Found out that John announced from the stage that I was coming back, which blew my mind to begin with, given I didn't think we were on that good terms. And then when I come back here, when we move back here, we get together with John and Barbara, and the first thing they say to me is they want me to speak. And how happy they are that we're back. And the healing that has occurred since I have been back in this past year and a half has been extraordinary for me. If I had wound up in Portugal, I would have missed this. I would have missed the brilliance and wonder and love and awe that I have felt with you. You guys have changed me. John and Barbara have changed me. I am not the same person who showed up here in Asheville a year and a half ago. And I'm just astounded by that. How I could have gotten my fingers in the gears and pushed forward and made Portugal happen, because I'm a guy who can make stuff happen. If I had kept at it, we'd be in Portugal now. And I would have missed this. And my heart is so full and feels so wonderful. That's what's possible when we get out of our own way, not try to control the circumstances, because I did not control winding up in Asheville, but I did follow that divine sense in me so that I could experience something greater than I ever imagined. And that's the power of this teaching. That's the true power, is the ability to experience life on this whole other plane when we open to possibilities that we didn't even imagine. And so we get here, and one of the other things that happens with John and Barbara is we have a meeting about how they need live music. And so they asked me to be the music director, and I start doing that. And the healing that has gone on in me in terms of writing new songs, I haven't written new songs in almost a decade. In terms of speaking, my speaking has gone to this whole other level I didn't expect. And my experience at Spirit Works left me feeling a little gun-shy about being a senior minister. And so when it came about that they announced their retirement and they started the whole candidating process, some of you came up to me and said, "Are you going to apply as a senior minister here?" And I said, "No. I am not ready for this." And at the time, I wasn't, right? That was not for me to do. And we went through the whole process with these folks coming in, candidating here, and that did not work out as planned. We were not in control of those circumstances as a community. And some of you in the Q&As that happened next door were a little in shock around that. Like, what happened here? How could this happen? We had this plan. We followed through. We did our part. What happened here? And isn't that what happens in our own lives? We look at sometimes when we have this plan and we move forward on it and it doesn't work out, and we think to ourselves, what's going on? Well, if we believe in this teaching, we know what's going on. Something greater. What's going on is something greater. We just can't see it yet. And so I went to John and Barbara and I said, I'm ready now. Now that this has happened, I'm ready. I could be the senior minister here. And so John and Barbara were very clear that it wasn't up to them. I was very clear it wasn't up to them. And so I approached the board about it. And the board had other ideas. And I have to say that at first it hurt my feelings. But then that was only because I forgot. I forgot this. So I get back in that headspace of remembering. And isn't that how it goes, right? We forget. Barbara's always said, it's not what you do first, it's what you do second. And so we get back on board. We get back knowing the truth. And that's what I did, not trying to control the circumstances of knowing that I'm the senior minister of CSL Asheville. No, highest and best. What's the highest and best here? Because that's what we're always working towards. What's the highest and best? There's something good here. There's a blessing going on here. What is it? An opening to that. And then I saw in the listserv, the minister listserv, about a senior minister opening in Seattle, which led to finding out about another senior minister opening in Edmonton, Canada. And so I applied to both of those places. And what has come out of that is a whole other healing. Because I had no idea how people thought about me throughout the movement until then. Where all of a sudden I have these two centers saying that I am a top-tier minister in this movement, and they both will do everything they can to woo me to be there. And they have invited us, and they were supposed to just fly me in, and they're flying in Ash with me and setting up all these adventures for us to be there. I told them about how I got to be near woods, so they're making, because, that's how I come up with these talks for you guys, is walking in the woods. And so I told them that. And so they set up where they're taking me into the woods in both places. They're doing all these wonderful things that allowed me to, because I left Spirit Works thinking, boy, I'm not very good at this. But came here and got to heal with you guys. And then now getting to move on in a way that I feel so good about myself. That I am beyond, it is beyond my imagination. The way people throughout the movement are talking about me that I had no idea. I have a reputation and I didn't even know it. In the meantime, the board has signed Sunny to be with you, Sunny Cantrell. She's amazing. We had a meeting the other day, and I'm here to tell you she is perfect. She is absolutely perfect for the next step for CSL. You guys are going to love her. And as the interim minister, she is going to lead you through what it takes to get to your next senior minister in the perfect and right way. Now, I could have pushed. There were people here who were willing to push for me to be the senior minister here. I could have gotten my own fingers in the gear, and that may not have turned out to what is happening now. What's happening now is you're going to get a situation where coming together and gelling together, moving through this transition from John and Barbara is perfect. And that's what we have here. A situation where we get to have perfect. When we get ourselves out of the way and let something higher rise in every circumstance, not just the ones we like. But if you're in a circumstance that you don't like, remember this. There's something good here. There's something higher here. There's something greater here going on. for each and every one of us. I'm amazed by this process, by the awesome process of life itself. I'm in awe of it. I want each of you to experience that. Maybe you do sometimes. Maybe you do a lot. Maybe you're really there with that. But if you're not, it's there for you. There is not a single person in the world who cannot experience awe and miracles if you can rise to the place of knowing that all you have to do is have dominion over thinking of evil, lack, or fear. They don't exist. What is real is our ability to rise. What is real is that the true miracles come in ways we can't even imagine. So if you're trying to control your circumstances, get out of your way. Cut it out. That is not the power of this teaching. I promise you. The power of this teaching is in knowing highest and best. And knowing what your next step is. That's my biggest question. What is my next step? So I'd like to end with a little meditation for you today. You up for that, a little guided meditation? All right. Let's hear a little tinkling on the keys. I want you to take a deep breath. Close your eyes if you want and relax. And imagine yourself on a path. It is the perfect path. It is your path. How it feels beneath your feet, the ease of going along it, the beauty, the smells in the air, the way the air feels against your skin. It's just perfect. The temperature, perfect. And you go along your path to a clearing. It is the perfect clearing. It is your sanctuary, your safe space. And in it, there's a chair, the perfect chair. And when you sit in it, your body just goes, ah. Take another deep breath and relax even more. Now put your hand to your heart and say to yourself, my life is perfect. My life is perfect. My life and all the circumstances in it are perfect for my highest and best. And from this place of knowing your perfection, ask the question, what is my next step now? What is my next step now? And allow the answer to just bubble up. And now thank yourself for this knowing of perfection and knowing whatever simply is your next step in life in this perfection. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Our lives are perfect. Our lives walk in the divine. Every single moment is divine. This is the beauty of our teaching. This is the power and the presence, is remembering the divine is in every moment. And something greater is yours through this divine, beyond your imagination, beyond what you can rationally think about. There is something even greater for you when we open to this place of knowing our divineness. Thank you. I love you.